Hi, this is Stephanie Vaughn, and welcome to Ageless. Our guest is in the studio and ready to share their story. So come on, let's get started. Hey everybody, this is Stephanie, and welcome to Ageless. And I have a wonderful person in my studio today, and her name is Nicole.
Hi there.
I've known her for a few years, and I'm going to go ahead and say this is my daughter-in-law.
Yay! You've known me for more than a few years.
Yes, I've known you for more than a few years.
It's been a decade now, I think.
Yes, it has been. And it's that is so crazy.
I know.
Nicole is a wonderful flautist, and she is an educator, so I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I have been really interested in music since I was born. I have always been in our church programs whenever we were in church, and joined band when I was in 6th grade. Got my last pick of instruments, which was the flute, and I grew to love it, and so much so that I went and got 2 degrees in it. Mm-hmm. And I got my undergrad at the University of South Alabama, went on to get my master's at UW-Madison in flute pedagogy. I am now currently in my 6th year of teaching middle school, do little gigs. I post on TikTok, make a lot of videos focusing around education and real life experiences I've had. So I've been going strong there for about 3 years, moving on to 4.
We both played flute. I played in high school, but I didn't excel as well as she has.
You did wonderfully.
She was in the top 10 finalist category for the 2023 Cheer Choice Awards for TikTok. Now, if you could give us a little background on what that's all about.
Yeah. Last year, a friend of mine had been nominated, and this year I got a notification in my mailbox, and it said that I had been nominated for the Cheer Choice Awards under the Enlightened Educator category. Cheer Choice Awards, they are focusing in on people who are bringing a light to the world, who are influencing people for the better.
If you could give us your web page, or I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
so give that out.
My social media handle is @teacher_Vaughn on TikTok, and videos on my YouTube channel, which is the same handle.
So everybody tune in. You would be very pleasantly surprised, and you'll walk away with a smile on your face after you see some of those things. I love it. Well, let's get into the conversation. And what I'd like for you to do is share just a little bit about your beginnings. I know that you've had many different people in your life to pour into you as a young person. I want people to be encouraged because there are some people that did not grow up in a traditional home. And if you would go ahead and just share a little bit about your story, and then we'll move on.
Sounds good. So to be brief, like you said, I did not grow up in a traditional home. My parents divorced when I was 2, so I was raised by my grandparents on my mother's side. They raised me from age, I want to say 3 or 4, till I graduated college. Lived with them all my life, and they were the ones that, provided for me and were by my side pretty much through anything and everything in my life. Of course, nothing is perfect, but I'm very grateful for what they did in my life. Because of them, I was able to really dive into more of my craft, something that I believe I would not have had access to if I had not been with them. A little bit about my background living with them. We went to church until I was about 7 years old. And during that time, I was in the Awana Club. I was very active in the children's choir, and I believe that's really where a lot of my love of music grew. Or after I turned 7, we left the church. So a lot of my understanding of Jesus and learning about the Bible happened from home. Years later, getting into college, I ended up connecting with a few other people that were in our music department, mainly in the marching band, and they had invited me to come to church with them. I was honestly fairly hesitant because my grandparents were pretty avid about, we should not go to church for a specific reason. This sounds very backwards, but I snuck. I lied, and I told my grandparents, oh, I'm going to go to the school to go practice, and I snuck into church with my friends,
oh, wow.
and that's where I had started going to South Coast Church, and
Yeah.
I think that was an amazing, eye-opening opportunity for me in my life, just because I got to hear about Jesus in a different light. It wasn't all fire and brimstone, or I think that's the phrase, yeah. It wasn't all like hell and damnation. It was like Jesus is love, God is love, and pointing me toward a loving Jesus and not a terrifying, angry, hostile God. And, something clicked there, and I was like, this is different. And so I started every weekend. I would get out of the house, go to the church, and
Because you were going to school.
because I was going to school to practice. And so anyway, I finally broke the news to my grandparents. It's like, look, I'm trying out this church, and they were a little hesitant about it, but they were like, okay, well, share what you find. And as I was going to this church, I was meeting women who were leading small groups for college kids. And so I started going to this small group with this lady. Her name is Nisi Fredericks. She is still someone that's very prominent in my life. We still connect. She helped me see the good in life when I thought everything was going downhill. Mm-hmm. I really believe that God used that opportunity to bring her into my life and to bring all these other young women into my life who were none other than colleagues for me. So that was something that really, truly helped me grow even more into a follower of Christ.
If you saw Nisi today, face to face, what would you say to her that would cause her to know that she was impactful in your life as far as showing you more of Jesus and the importance of following him?
I would just give her a big old hug and say thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank God for you. I don't even know what else I would say besides that, honestly. Yeah, she's been an amazing impact in my life, and reminding me of the goodness of God, and reminding me that even though things might seem bleak and dull and dark, that there are people who love you, there are people who are here for you, but although those people are there for you, we have one person that is always going to be right next to you, even when you don't feel him, and that would be Jesus. And yeah, that's something that I always hold.
You have tears in your eyes when you mentioned her and you started talking. Sometimes I know we feel like we don't measure up. We don't fit people's molds. Were you feeling like you weren't fitting a mold, or you weren't being what you thought you needed to be, and Nisi was there to kind of redirect your focus or help you redirect your focus? Is that...
To give a little more, my grandparents were very Calvinistic. I didn't really understand that until someone very close to me brought that up to me. And I didn't really understand what that was either. So I talked to Nisi a lot as I was starting to learn more about Jesus and re-understand what the purpose of having the Word of God was, and the purpose of being a Christian. When I would have these conversations with her, she would pretty much help me unlearn the things that I had learned and remind me that this isn't exactly all works-based. If you make a mistake, that's it, you're going to hell. No, she helped me see that there's grace and there's forgiveness and there's mercy. And Jesus died on the cross for me. And that's not just for me to go out and be like, oh, Jesus already did it all for me, he saved me, I can go and do whatever I want. But this just helped me kind of reevaluate how I live. I'm thinking more, I'm more focused on what my actions and what my thoughts and what the things that I do and say, how they benefit the kingdom, and how, although I'm human and I make errors, I make mistakes, I will never be perfect. That is okay because Jesus is here and he loves me and he cares for me, and he's not here for me to be perfect. If I were perfect, there would be no need for him. So kind of unlearning the things I was taught and any negative things that I started to believe about myself because those who were closest to me would tell me that I was those negative things. That was something that Nisi really helped kind of burn away and root in a sense, new life into my thought process. So, yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. You learn new things every day.
I do. And I've known you for a little while.
I know.
My daughter, in quotations, in-law, which I don't consider that an in-law deal. Right. But anyway, she is a believer, and I'm just grateful that she is able to share and hopefully give other people out there listening, other ladies out there listening, you don't have to be perfect. I think sometimes we put a lot of things on ourselves to make us believe that we have to be perfect and we have to say the right things and we have to look a certain way. But if you are a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, you don't have to, because he's already taken that for you. Your identity is in him. It's not you. That's the identity. It's him. And so thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Thank you. Outside of Nisi, what other person or female in your lifetime has been a positive influence as far as helping you become the woman that you are and appreciating life and enjoying life in general? If you could start maybe high school, if there were some other people in your life, teachers, family, share some of those people with us and how they touched your life.
Might not be exactly the answer you're looking for, but I didn't really have anyone.
That's okay. I mean, not that...
Right. It's okay. I was alone. I had no one. I know. No, I found it hilarious. Nope. I want this in there. And documented.
But I love you.
I know. I love you too. No, this is staying in there. Okay. Let's see, though. Honestly, no, I really didn't. My grandmother was the only, I guess, I don't know how to classify it, woman giant in my life. But I will say there were two teachers that I had, both music teachers, that I did look up to. And I credit one of them for really showing me that I am capable of doing something or doing anything with success. And that would be my middle school band director, Heather Moore, now Heather Landstill. She's the reason why I'm a band director today. She always had a smile on her face, even when she was very frustrated. And she made sure you knew she was frustrated, but she still had that smile. Okay. And it was like the warm demander, like tough love, loving mom of sorts. And I still remember in 6th grade, I had planned on quitting band because I could not play the flute to save my life. I was struggling.
You could have fooled me.
I was struggling. Oh gosh, I was struggling. I couldn't get a sound out. Wow. The fingers were fine. I could understand the mechanics of moving my fingers, and that was great. But as far as like sound quality and like just really like being able to fine tune, I just couldn't do it. And so at the end of 6th grade, I told my teacher, I was like, I can't. And from here, I'm going to call her Heather. But obviously, middle school me didn't call her by her first name. I looked at Heather and I was just like, I can't do this. I'm going to quit. I'm not going to audition for 8th grade band. And at the time, 6th graders could audition to be in the 8th grade band, the advanced band. And she really wanted me to do it. And she was like, this is what I want you to do. Even if you're not prepared, I want you to come to the audition anyway. The worst that could happen is that you go on to 7th grade, which is what you typically would do anyway. I want to see you at that audition. And I said, I don't know. And I think at one point I said, you really can't make me, right? She's like, yeah, I know, but I'm sure you'll be there. And I said, all right. And so I went and I auditioned, and I think we got the results on Monday, and I noticed that I was going to be getting a schedule change so that I could do 8th grade band in 7th grade. And I didn't understand it. I looked at her and I was like, why? Wow. And she said, because you're capable. I just needed you to be able to see that you were. So from then on out, that's what really drove me to continue to push my skill level on playing flute.
So with Heather, would you say that your growth in where you were at that time was having somebody help you to believe in yourself?
Yes.
That you were capable?
Yes, because I had two different ideas. There was one that said, you can do it, but if you don't do it, then that means you didn't work hard enough, you weren't good enough, you should have been better. And then I had the one that said, you can do this, and I believe you can do this, and I believe you believe it. We've just got to push you to get there. And if you don't get there, that's okay. There's more time. and that doesn't make you a failure. And it was more on the positive, like uplifting side rather than pushing me down and making me feel as though I wasn't good enough, that I'm not capable, that I'm not, that has been a life-changing mentality for me.
So for Heather to come behind you in a positive way,
yeah,
helped you to see the gift that God had given to you to help you blossom that gift, not to say, oh, this is mine and I did it,
right.
But it was to help you embellish what was already in you,
right.
And make you believe that what was in you was worth something to give to others.
Right, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay, who's the second person?
Well, the second person...
I love this. I've been so blessed to hear a lot of women that I know.
Right.
And they're telling me all these things, and I'm going, but we've been together all this time,
right.
And I don't know this. How come? So, how come, Nicole?
Well, oh gosh.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So then the second person in high school, this was my high school band director, but also my high school choir teacher, Gretchen Greenwood. And again, we still connect. We still talk to each other. We actually just spoke to each other yesterday. And she was somebody who saw my struggle socially, emotionally in school. And I think she could guess and sense that there was something off at home as well. So she was more of the nurturing teacher, the most nurturing teacher I had in high school. She is someone that I definitely call a friend, someone I can turn to for advice should I need it, and a believer as well. She was always someone who saw my capabilities. At the time, for some reason, I had this idea that if I wasn't a soprano, then I wasn't a good singer. She was the one that kind of broke that thought for me. And she's like, just because you're not a soprano doesn't necessarily make you a bad singer. And then she was also just a light. She always was there if I was just emotionally down, and she would brighten my day. If she saw something that she didn't necessarily like, she would come to me and pull me aside, not in front of other peers, and she'd be like, hey, think about doing this instead of doing this. Or is that maybe a smart choice? Question, I'll be like, why aren't teachers like this? Why aren't there more teachers that are thinking about students in that way, rather than just being like, oh, you're another head in my classroom. And so the way that she has taught me and the way that she has, shown me love in the classroom, her perspective of teaching has become my perspective as well, which is why I'm, my office door is always open for my students. So that's why, those two ladies are the reasons why I am an educator and why I educate the way that I do.
Heather gave you a belief, and Gretchen gave you a method. And so between these two ladies, you were able to formulate an even greater platform for music education. So you instill belief in your students, but you also expect them to express the gifts that they have been instilled with.
Right.
These women were willing to take a risk with you. How many other women, let's move to the college level. I do know one person, Bonet.
Yeah.
I know she was very influential in your college life because that was your flute teacher.
Yes.
Instructor. Professor.
Yeah.
She was something.
She was something.
And then she became a colleague.
Yes.
How was that connection with her? How did that make you an even better musician as far as playing the flute? And you got a chance to travel a little bit with them. So how did she stretch you and combine the belief and the method from these other two teachers? How did all of this make you even better?
Heather, she was more of the supporter. Gretchen was the empath, the emotional portion. Andra, she was the logics person. So I had three. Yeah, she was very logistical, if that's even a word.
Her.
Yeah,
I do remember her.
So everything she had to say, everything she did was very logics based, and she did have a bit of a, she had a bit of a soft heart. I started having lessons with her day one of college, and she really would push me. There were no excuses, and she had a way of making sure that you were prepared. She was all about not wasting time, but she could also sense when you were off. She would stop you in the middle of the lesson and she'd be like, okay, what's up? Talk to me. So then I'd share if something was off, and she'd be like, yeah, well, life's like that sometimes. And, I think a lot of her, the way that she is, I don't want to say it's because she's not a believer, but because she's not a believer, I think a lot of it is also just about, a lot of her focus was, well, the universe doesn't have it in your future for today. And so I think she was honestly giving the best that she could. And she's become a very good friend. She was somebody that I could look up to. If I needed a logical answer, she was the one. If I needed emotional, I need to just sit and be with somebody who can be empathetic with me, that would be Gretchen. If I needed somebody who could really encourage me and support me, help me kind of think of ideas, Heather was the one. And I still reach out to all three of them today.
You've mentioned emotion and emotional a couple times in the discussion. Do you think as women we take enough time to really care for one another on an emotional level, or do you think we're just kind of hit or miss and it's like, well, you got it, girl, you're all right? What do you think?
I think it's dependent on everyone's situation.
Okay.
I think partially generational, partially just time-based, partially just I don't have time. Actually, I think it's just those two things, time and generational. So, for instance, I've found that it's time, generational, and situational. Sometimes I think two of them are connected with each other. I think sometimes they can just be singled out. And then very rarely, I think I found all three mixed together. So for instance, at home, mine was more generational. The emotion that I received, or emotional support that I've received, was very slim from the woman's aspect. At school, it was more so about time. Because, every teacher's busy. Every teacher's got their thing that they've got to do. They've got to meet these deadlines. They've got to make sure that they're caught up on their units. They've got to do grades, all this other stuff. They just don't have the time. And then a lot of it is also situational. Every person has grown up differently. Every person has experienced different things, whether it be traumatic, non-traumatic. And so there's only so much. They might want to give you that emotional support, but there's only so much that they can do or so much that they know based on, their situation. So I guess in hindsight, all of it is very hit or miss. Nothing's really very concrete.
And that's a great answer. And I love what you said. You spoke about generational. I'm thinking, as you're speaking, that generations don't mix. And the whole idea behind Ageless is to tear down age walls.
Right.
I know from what you've experienced, and me too, because that's just a thing. You usually deal with people in your age group. And when you're going through something, your age group might understand, but then they may not because they don't have the time, and somebody else might have more time. But how can we make caring less of a generational concern and make it I see you, I care, despite what your age is? How can you do that?
If it were easy, it would just be all just having an open mind.
Okay.
If everybody could just have an open mind, that would fix it all. No problem, right? However, I grew up with two of our four generations. So I had my great-grandmother on my mother's side, who lived with us for quite some time, until she passed in 2008. She was born in 1918. And my grandmother, also my mother's side, she was born in 1937. They both have slightly different ways of caring, slightly different ways of showing emotion. But I believe my great-grandmother showed more care and more emotional support than my grandmother did. My grandmother was more of the hard shell. And then as it went on to my mother, whom I did not grow up with, but I do remember fairly our relationship for the first 6 years. She tried to be the fun mom. So it went from soft but firm to hard shell to fun, but no real hardcore stick to your guns. So everything was very much different. But if you put three of them in a room, there was no open-mindedness. I do believe that if all three were open-minded, life might have been a little different. And a lot of it is just I'm all set in my ways. This works, so I'm sticking to it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's my favorite saying I've ever heard any of them say, was if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's, I think, across, if we just, as a nation, women in this nation, if we were all just more open-minded and listened without trying to have a solution right away and shared without fear of ridicule and judgment, I think that would, I don't want to say fix it, but at least, I guess, allow for more healing to happen.
So basically what you're saying is being a listener and showing compassion and having time.
You summed it right up. There it is.
Because we don't.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't because we don't know what's going to be asked of us. Or we just feel like, I don't have time for that because my life is so busy. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, at the end of the day, if you had 10 or 15 minutes where you were doing nothing, that could have been given to somebody who really just needed a phone call to say, hey, I was thinking about you.
Right.
Or shoot them a text.
Right.
I have my issues with text. Because, I know they're important, and when I got my phone, they used to tease me because the only reason I got the phone was to order pizza and stuff like that. It wasn't to do anything else or to play games on it, but now, when I leave the house, I feel like, where's my phone?
Right.
But the sad thing about texting is we've gotten away from hearing the human voice. Mm-hmm. Texting touches the mind, but the human voice goes through the ear and touches the heart. Mm-hmm. And it's just, for me, I like phone calls. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be long. You don't have to talk to me for an hour. But just enough to say, hey, how are you doing? Or I was thinking about you, or for me to get a recipe from you. I can do that too. I appreciate you sharing that. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to, now we've done college and now you're in the classroom. How are you making an impact in the lives of the young women there? Tell us how your life and the things that you've experienced, how are you using the negatives, the positives, the in-betweens, so that they can see they can do things. Mm-hmm. They are important. They are special. And also that they have been given a gift by God. Mm-hmm. Life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will say my first school taught me so much. And it wasn't the administrators, it wasn't the teachers, it wasn't the content, it was the students. The students taught me what they needed most. They needed somebody who could push them to do the things that they needed to do, but they needed somebody to love them and to know that there was somebody in their corner. I kind of became that for a lot of the girls in my classroom, in both schools. No matter what, they know that my office is open. If you need to talk, great, let's talk. Now, I'm not here to fix everything, but I am here to listen. God has worked through me to reach out to these young girls.
So as you're moving around in the school, mm-hmm. for you to take the risk of jumping into somebody's life, why is that so important for you to do that?
The ones that teachers seem to push away from, mm-hmm. I draw nearer to them. Mm-hmm. And they need to see somebody who is older than them that cares about them, not somebody that just wants to get them in trouble all the time. Mm-hmm. No, it's not hard for me at all. It's something that I need to do, and it's what I want to do.
When you get that cup of coffee and you say, hey, when you see that smile on their face, mm-hmm. and they're like, morning, and you're like, okay, that's why I'm here. Yeah. Because you see the light go on, mm-hmm. you see, hey, they like me. I'm a good teacher. I'm the fun teacher. So, yeah, that's the benefit. Yeah, going there every day with your cup of coffee and your good morning. You're getting that payback from those kids that you've invested in. So thank you for doing that. We're almost at the end of our conversation, and I so appreciate you for doing this. What is the value of friendship to you as far as women? How can we make this less generational?
Make yourself uncomfortable and be intentional. It may be extremely uncomfortable, out of your comfort zone, to go up to somebody that you may deem an acquaintance and be like, try to be interested in whatever they're doing. Say they're working on something on their computer and you sit down and say, hey, what are you working on? And I'll say, oh, I'm working on, such and such. Don't just leave it at, oh, okay. Ask questions. Be intentional. I can almost guarantee that they will dive deeper into it. They will try to explain more to you that might intrigue you. Don't make it about yourself. That's something that can get muddy when you're trying to connect with someone. If somebody is struggling with something that you're knowledgeable about, right? Because you might have a similar situation. It's not about you right there. Mm-hmm. It's not about you in the moment. It's about them. If you want to share, ask them first, because they might feel as though they need to shut down then and focus more on you if they happen to be more of the empath than you are. Make it less about you, because once you make it less about you, then you start to connect more and understand them more. Because although you may have the same experiences, you may have different reactions. Mm-hmm. So being intentional, listening to understand rather than to respond, those for sure good steps to kind of break that mold.
That's good. So, how would you describe the word ageless?
I think you're absolutely right with ageless being borderless. When people talk about their age, they say, oh, I'm much older than you, so that means I'm wiser than you. That doesn't necessarily mean that at all. You could be 58 years old and still not know what it means to truly live. I believe when I connect the word ageless, I kind of consider it like being a child of God. I was actually reading in the Bible somewhere, I want to say it was in Matthew, when Jesus speaks and says, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of his child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And so, like, when I think of what I thought about the word ageless, people tend to connect being older as being wiser and being better, you know, more knowing. But I mean, being like a child, like God always wants us to be able to have that faith like a little child, right? And I don't know if maybe this is very like a big reach, but it's kind of, I kind of connect it in that way. Because it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how much experience or lack thereof that you have. We're all human beings at the end of the day. And we are here for one purpose, and that's to lift each other up and do things for the kingdom of God. And if we're not doing that, then are we truly living?
That's deep. If I walked up to you and said, Nicole, you are truly ageless, how would that make you feel?
Pretty good, actually. I don't want to be seen as like this old lady who's like crabby and, you know, all sort of stuff. And I mean, the kids remind me that I'm old because they tell me that I was born in the late 1900s.
I mean, really?
And so that's, you know, that's something, I mean, I'm only 28. Like, I'm not old. No, I would just smile and say thank you. I mean, I wouldn't feel any negativity toward it.
So, feel more vibrant or energetic because someone said that to you?
I'd feel light. Yeah, I'd feel happy. I'd feel like I had a pep in my step that day.
How would you pass that energy on to somebody else?
That's a good question. I'll just do what I do every day in the hallways. You know, say hello to whoever I see. Oh, that's a lovely pair of shoes. You know, buy somebody a coffee that's in line behind me. It doesn't have to be exactly the way that somebody else shared their light. I can do it in my own flair.
So do you consider yourself paying it forward for the things that you have been given in the past?
Yes.
And in what ways or way?
Using, honestly, my God-given talents, like my personality, my who I am, my DNA, you know, sharing that with those around me. That I think is what influences those around me the most. That's how I pay it back. Yeah.
Final question.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay. If you were a spice, your eyes go like, what? Which one would you be? How would that spice influence the lives of other women?
Okay, well, I love pumpkin spice.
Okay, so tell us about pumpkin spice.
Pumpkin spice should be year-long. Should be year-round. I love it in coffee. I love it on my pies. I love it on whatever is supposed to be sweet. I love it. And so I, being that pumpkin spice, would be the spice of those around me for years to come. 365 days a year, 24/7. And that is why you find joy when I come and visit. Every time.
It makes you smile when you sip that
Yep,
coffee.
you just take a sip. All you need is a lovely hug from me and you've got your pumpkin spice.
Oh, boy.
I'm so humble.
Yes, let's get that big pail of pumpkin spice. This time has gone by so quickly.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to leave with us before we close?
I would like to say one more.
Well, you go ahead.
And so, you know, out of all the women, and this is not just to be, you know, cliche because I'm here with my mother, but I will say that one other person that has been very influential in my life has been my mother, who is sitting right in front of me.
Aww.
And the reason I say that is because she was probably the first woman in college of color that has taken the time to sit with me and help me navigate life, you know, the craziness that was my life in college, and really taught me what it means to forgive and to love and to understand those around me. And even before she told me it was okay for me to call her mom in the house that very first day, I was planning on calling her mom anyway, because she really was the epitome of what it meant to be a mom. And so I want to make sure that she wasn't left out of my story, because she is she is a huge impact and a huge part of my story, my life story. So thank you, Mom.
I am overwhelmed. Thank you.
Love you.
I love you too. Now that we can get out the tissues. Thanks, Nicole, thanks for saying that. That's very encouraging. I am so grateful, as I said, to have the privilege of speaking with you, and it's been a joy. It's really been awesome.
Thank you.
Hey, my friend. Thanks for joining me today on Ageless and for being an amazing part of this journey. Don't forget, you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. Go out today and live this life vibrantly. Until next time, bye for now.